Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Shed Restoration. So over the last 6 months, I've been restoring this bad boy here. So I'm going to run you guys through the final steps of the restoration. We're going to be doing a bit of sort of paint correction, but we're actually trying to flatten off the paint because I actually painted this myself. So it's not the best paint job, but I'm going to show you guys how you can make an average paint job actually look much better. To the untrained eye, it will probably look like a perfect paint job at the end. So we're going to be doing a bit of sanding and stuff like that at the very end. Once the paint job has been completely sort of perfected, shall I say, we're going to be doing a coating on the car, and we're going to be doing this process in 3 different episodes. So there's going to be a lot of awesome content that you guys can learn here. We're even going to be making decals as well for it to get the original look, because this car is actually, in my opinion, a survivor car. So we managed to find the original owners of the car, and we're planning on, in the very last episode, actually returning it to the original owners and giving them a look at what their 40-year-old Landcruiser looks like nowadays. Let's get into it, guys. So let me tell you guys a little bit about the car. So it's an FJ60 1980s model, and these are really sought after in Australia, usually actually mainly the diesel ones, but this one, it came up down the road, and unfortunately it's a petrol, but it was in really good condition, like quite original and stuff like that. So I thought, seeing it's such a good basis to start out with, let's do a full restoration, and that way I can start from ground up, have a completely rust-free shell, and then have the car long term. So what we did to this car is we brought it back to as original as we can. So we started out with completely stripping it to bare metal, and then ground up, priming it, removing all rust and stuff like that. We're going to blend in some photos now, photos that we got when we just bought the car. So here's a couple of things that I really like about this car that have come out amazing with the restoration. So we managed to source an original front bumper. Like, you might not think much of it, but most of these front bumpers were originally just thrown straight in the bin, and people put bull bars on them because there was no value in them. But now people are actually more so interested in the originality of these cars. Then we managed to find the original paint coat for these headlight surrounds here, which a friend of mine beautifully restored. Those came out amazing, and follow me around. So we obviously gave the whole car a complete paint job. We used Nippon, which is like a Japanese OEM Toyota paint. Awesome quality stuff. I'm just unfortunately not the best painter, so that's why we're gonna have to be doing a bit of perfection on that. We put new windscreen surround trims in, which those sort of small touches make a huge big difference to these sort of cars at the end, having that nice sort of chrome around the windscreen again. We polished up all of the metals and stuff like that to make them look nice and shiny again. With the front wheels, we were originally going to go with the factory split rims, but because of technical issues with them, I decided I'd prefer to go with a tubeless tire. That's why we've just color matched them to the factory color and painted them to give it that most original look without actually having to run tubed tires. We put brand new Toyota badges on the side here, which you can still buy new because they are actually the same as what's on the 70 series. These trims here were also restored in that same factory OEM color, as well as the surround for the rear window. So again, we've replaced the rear windscreen seal as well to give it that nice look. Even the wipers were still original on the vehicle. That's why we actually just gave this a fresh lick of paint here, and the OEM look from there on with the bare silver. Another restored badge down here, this four-wheel drive badge. You can buy them new, but they were quite costly, so we decided to go against that. There's still some minor sort of touches that we want to do on this car. That's why the restoration isn't completed yet. Follow me around. This is actually one of the biggest reasons why this car was so cheap and the last owner had to give up on it. So what had happened here with this rear quarter panel is actually that the previous owner had the trailer connected to it, and typical Landcruiser handbrakes, the Landcruiser handbrake failed, and the car actually started rolling in reverse, and the trailer jackknifed and completely caved this quarter panel in. So we had to do a complete chop out of this quarter panel and weld in a new one from another donor Landcruiser. It was probably one of the most tricky jobs I've ever done on a vehicle because I'm not a panel beater. I'm just sort of a hobby restorer from home, but I really love detailing and spray painting and that sort of thing. So it was a real challenge for me to get that right. But overall, it's hardly noticeable now that this quarter panel was replaced. And to top all that off, we cavity waxed all empty crevices on this car because these are notorious for rusting, unfortunately. As amazing as they are, the body was always the first thing to give up on these vehicles. All right guys, so we're gonna start out with this fender here. So we've got a bit of orange peel in it and a few like insects and dust and stuff like that landed in it because I didn't paint this in a spray booth. But the way we're gonna fix it is by using this orbital sander here. You can pick these up for $150 or so at your local panel supply shop. But what I must say is the abrasive is the most important part. So I am personally in love with 3M Trizact. Like they make some of the best abrasives in my opinion, and the Sonax compounds polish them out amazingly. So they're very abrasive, but they don't leave deep scratches. So I've found a 1000 Trizact can be as abrasive as an 800 from another company, but will polish out as well as a 2000 from a less good company as such. So that's why invest in the abrasive. The sander just needs to be good enough, especially if you're not doing it all day. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with the 1000 grit sandpaper and we're gonna knock it down with a bit of water until the surface is completely flat, and I'll show you guys how you can identify once the surface is completely flat. So currently we've got a little bit of peel in here, but we're gonna spray some water on it, sand it, and once we feel like we've sanded it enough, we'll let it dry off. Once it's dry, you're gonna be looking out for shiny areas. So if there's any more shiny spots on your panel, that means they haven't been sanded enough, and those are lows. Those lows will come back up as peel and stuff like that, or if you have like a run or debris sitting in your paint, that's what you want to look out for. So what we'll do here is we've got a little bit of water in a sprayer, give it a nice liberal spray in that area that I'm going to be working, keep it nice and lubricated. I've got a little bit of soap in there as well, just the very, very tiniest amount because you don't want to take away from the abrasion that's happening. Another point I forgot to mention earlier is make sure you don't go too close to these edges because these edges are where the paint will be the thinnest and the most sanding will occur. So don't run the sander along these edges. I usually like to stick about 1 millimeter away from there if you can, just to avoid sort of sanding through, and then we're pretty much back at square one where it will need to be painted again. So this is what I was speaking about. So see how we've got a shiny area left here on the front. So that's naturally happened because I'm most worried about sanding through on this edge here. That's why I went very light there. And in terms, it actually has barely seen any sanding. So that matte finish there is what we're actually trying to achieve all over before we go on to the 2000s. So basically we need to just keep 1000ing it until all of these sort of shiny areas are completely gone, but also focus not to cut through. So we've got a bit of an issue here, unfortunately. Like, it's not going to be pretty either way, but we had a bit of splatter come out of the gun because I wasn't running a filter in the bottom of the gun, and there was a bit of dried up paint in the actual paint canister before I put it in. What we're going to do is we're going to use this like Kovacs block here with a 1500 and a 2000, and we're just going to level them off as much as we can and see how we go. We might have to do a bit of a touch up with like a brush and a sand, but let's see how good we can get it. So the real goal here in this situation is that we're just going to minimize it as much as possible and see how good we can get it. But unfortunately, perfection won't be possible here. So now we've finished sanding the whole fender with the 1000, we're happy with it. We're now going to quickly buzz over with the 2000 just to reduce the scratches that the 1000 puts in, to make it as easy as possible to polish out.
Don't leave me here searching. You're just what I'm longing for. When times are getting crazy, everything seems hazy.
So how you can tell that I'm not a painter is because I put the cutting compound onto my wool pad like this and not like this. But do what you like. And I should also probably tell you guys what I'm using. So what we're using here is Ultimate Cut with our wool pad for a really aggressive cut to knock those 2,000 scratches right back down. So I'm quite happy with this, how this area has turned out. So we just got to repeat the step with Ultimate Cut for the entire panel, then pass over it one more time with Perfect Finish, and that will be all that is required to get this paint job looking as best as possible. So now we've cut it as much as it needs to be cut, and the gloss is actually already there, but really to get that highest possible gloss, we're now going to go over with Perfect Finish, medium pad, rotary it, and it'll look $1,000,000 after that. Make sure to nicely prime your medium pad, give it a bit extra at the start, and then we're ready to polish. Start at a low speed, and then towards the end we'll come up in speed, give it that really nice high gloss that we're all looking for. Also, what I'm doing at the moment is I'm also actually, whilst I'm polishing, I'm spreading the compound as well. So by doing this, we avoid all flick of the compound because we're putting a very thin layer over the top of the paint of the compound. And then once we've done that, we'll speed up a little bit as well, and we can get like an awesome polishing experience without any flick or anything like that. Alright, let's wipe off a few little bits of Perfect Finish residue that we have left, and that will give us our awesome final result of the highest gloss we can achieve. And we've pretty much perfected this paint job as much as we can. Look, it's still far from perfect in my opinion. If you're standing a couple meters away, you would never know.